very painful to my British ears. Half British ears, half Indian, half British. Okay, so thank you everybody again online. We'll start now with posture and motivation, and then we'll see how it goes. I was planning to carry on with what we were doing with causes of happiness and the habitual patterns and the what we called arrogance, the self-grasping ignorance, but we'll see how it goes since we have some beginners here. Plus, it's always good to go over things slowly. So we'll see how it goes, and we'll go till about 1:45, 1 o'clock. We'll see. Okay. So upright posture, yeah, good. And you don't need to look at me right now. There's nothing much to look at, but you can have your head tilted slightly downwards. This to take the stress off the back of your neck. And your eyes can be a little open or closed. Arms by the side of your body, but not tightly. There's a gap to let air flow. And I would suggest you, if it's easy, just keep them simply on your knees, palm down. But if you know another posture which you are happy with, comfortable with, you can do that. Make sure your shoulders are level. Not hunched forward and not pulled back too much. Essence of this is sense of discipline and uprightness, but also relaxation. That's so important. Not to be, we have this English word, I don't know what it would be in French, but like uptight. Uptight means, it's like when you screw something too tight, you can't open the jar. Or, so it's like being too, like this, uptight, so a bit relaxed, okay? But not so relaxed that we get sleepy, because that can be a problem. Yeah, when we relax, we think, oh, it's time to sleep. But no, not time to sleep, time to be really awake. All the meditative traditions, I think, of all the religions would say that we really need to be very awake, very aware, moment by moment, and that in fact not being aware is one of the major causes of our suffering, our ignorance. Yeah, is my English clear? Yeah, I'll try to speak very straightforward, good English. And thank you for understanding it. I wouldn't understand this if it was in French, even though I studied French for 5-6 years. But yeah, we English are very, we really think our language is the best, yeah? What to do? So, upright, relaxed, attentive, awake. And see if you can keep the body still. Actually, I find this very difficult to keep the body still because there's so much nervous energy in most people's bodies, especially if we are living in a city, urban lifestyle. Our body doesn't get enough movement, stretching, usually, unless we, practice a lot of disciplines like yoga or go to the gym, and then we can let go of a lot of the restless, stuck energy. But so experiment trying to be still for a little while. We won't be meditating for long. We will be doing short bits of meditation in between the talking, in between some explanation. Okay. So what is very important in this Buddhist tradition, especially what we call Mahayana, or great vehicle meaning great way. A vehicle can be very small, like a toy car that a child uses just to, for fun in their playroom. Or a vehicle can be as big as a big airliner or a vast cruising ship, cruiser. So here, Mahayana means a great vehicle, refers to the fact that what we are wishing for, what we are aspiring for, our aspiration is very great, is very vast. Yeah. So what is that aspiration? What is that, you could say, what is our vision? What is the vision of Mahayana Buddhism? The vision is not just to wake up oneself, not just to become free of suffering oneself, but to free everybody, to work for the liberation of everybody, all living beings, whoever they are, including animals, of course, and any other beings with minds, with consciousness that may exist. In the Mahayana, there's this, what we might call very extraordinary, very almost, you could say, crazy aspiration that I'm going to do what I can to help everybody. I'll do what I can to help all sentient beings, all living beings. Why? Because they're suffering. They want to be happy, just like me and my friends. They don't want to suffer. And what is the situation? They are suffering incredibly through their ignorance, through their mistaken behavior, through the power of their very powerful emotions, which they cannot control. Yeah. And so many circumstances in life are making people unhappy, making them miserable. So much so that it can even be, death and destruction for them and their families, for their homes, for their fields, for their countries, So many refugees in the world, So many people are actually without proper food, or starving, or suffering from disease, suffering from warfare, many parts of the world. Some we know very well, other conflicts, we don't know so much about them, but they're happening. So what are we saying? We're saying there is so much pain, so much, douleur in French, I think, so many problems, so much suffering. So seeing that, we try to generate a little bit, attitude like a kind father or mother, who sees the suffering of her child and wants to help, cannot bear the suffering of her children and wants to make sure they are free from that suffering, whatever it is. So this is you could say, in very simple language, the vision of Mahayana Buddhism, whereas basic Buddhism is more concerned with disciplining oneself so that one can attain one's own freedom, one's own liberation only, not other people's, one's own. That is the main aim, to get out of the jail oneself, jail of unhappiness and suffering. Whereas Mahayana, we get out of the jail, or we try to take everybody out of the jail. We don't just dig the tunnel for oneself. We make sure we are willing to help everybody to escape. So this might seem very strange, very crazy. In one way it is, It is doesn't seem common sense, But this is anyway the vision, and this is the aspiration of the Mahayana. That however long it takes, however much effort, courage, I'm going to do what I can for others. In whatever way is necessary. And will this take a long time? Yes, it will take a long time. So from Buddhist perspective, this life is just one short life. There is continuity of mind. There is continuity, meaning death of this body, okay, again, can come back with another body. Carry on the work, carry on the helping others. So this... But for now, we can have this attitude that, look, I'm going to engage in some meditation, some listening, some discussion, And through that, may I develop a little bit more understanding of my life, my potential, maybe, what I can do as a human being. It might also give us some more insight into what is the meaning of my life. And it could also show us there can be little gaps where there is some more peace in the mind, some calm, some peace, some tranquility. Yeah, that's also very possible. So all of this, we can feel that, yeah, I'm practicing, I'm going to listen. I took the trouble to come here, not just to pass the time, but to engage in something useful for myself and others. Well, not so much in a material way, but for my mind. For us Buddhists, the mind, the consciousness is the main creator. It is the source, it is the root of either our happiness or our suffering, depending how we use our mind. Yeah, depending on our motivation, depending on how we behave with our speech, with our body, which is controlled by the mind. Okay. So to do all this either we are just looking for some peace and happiness or our own freedom, or we want to take up this very huge task of helping others out of kindness, out of what we call compassion for them. Whatever it is, we need to start with a calm mind, right? So how do we calm the mind? How do we tame the mind? Make it a little bit workable, like a good gardener comes to some plot of land. First, the gardener has to make sure the soil is in a good shape, is good, healthy soil. Before planting any seeds, the gardener has to make sure the soil is in very good condition. Yeah. So like that, we have to prepare our mind to go deeper into compassion, deeper into wisdom. So therefore, we will first practice the breath awareness, which is very simple. The instruction is very simple, and we have to engage in it with some determination, some effort. Remember to have stillness in the body, sense of relaxation, but also very attentive, very awake. So what we're going to do is be aware of the sensation of breath, okay? We know we are breathing. Intellectually, we know. But how often do we actually pay attention to our breath, the actual breathing process? Not very often, I think. So here we are going to pay really close but relaxed attention to the sensation of your breath as it enters and leaves your nostrils, right? Your nose. We pay attention to the sensation there at the tip of the nostrils. Yeah. There will be a slight sensation as you breathe in and out. If you need to bring your attention there, first take a few deep breaths, and then you can feel the breath at your nostrils, right? So once you have identified your breath, then you please bring your attention there, but again, relaxed but attentive. It is possible. Don't stress, don't strain, if you find your fingers or the muscles of your face, your stomach is getting tense, bring your attention there and just relax. Relax as you breathe out. That can be very useful. Use the out breath to relax. And just bring the attention to the breathing. at your nostrils. If that really becomes very difficult for you, then you can pay attention to your abdomen, your stomach area. The abdomen moves in and out as you breathe. You could be aware of that sensation. That's also possible. Okay. So bring your attention there, and you'll find that within a few seconds, your mind, like a very restless monkey, jumps here and there to some thought, a memory, or whatever. It doesn't matter. This is what the mind does. Just recognize that the mind has gone off somewhere to a thought or memory, a plan for the future, and just let it go. Let go of that thought or image, and just come back to the breath. Come back to the breath, sensation of the breath. This will not be that easy because our whole life and our training, our schooling is helping us, is encouraging us to think and to be up in the head. Here, we are coming back to the breath, which is in one way our best friend. While we're alive, it's our best friend. It's there all the time. So come to the breath. You get distracted, no problem. Recognize, let it go, back to the breath. So let's sit quietly for a few minutes, practicing this with stillness, relaxation, but also very attentive, very alert. Be attentive so that you recognize when the mind has left the breath. Let go of the distraction and just come back without tension, come back to the breath. A sense of relaxing with the out breath. If you need, especially if you're a beginner, you can take a break now for half a minute or a minute and stretch your body. If you need. If you don't need, it's okay. If you need, do that. Even if you need to stand up, no problem. Stretch. We're here to also be kind to ourselves and not a torture chamber. So the body needs to be taken good care of. And this is mainly an awareness exercise. It's not about having to do this, having to do that for a particular length of time, but to be aware as you stretch your body, as you relax your body, just be aware. How does it feel when you do that? And then again, just paying attention to the breath. It may seem boring, and that's a good sign. It shows that we are doing the practice and that the mind, which is so habituated to rushing around here and there, is feeling a little strange having to just be aware of breath. It's almost like some kind of insult to the restless mind. But gently, as you would treat a child or a young puppy dog that you are training, just bring the mind back again and again to the breath. Not as a punishment, but as awareness. And you can be curious about the breath. Okay. If you need, again, have a little stretch. Stand up if you need. At school, when we meditate with the children, even young children, they sit for 5-6 minutes, and then after they like to rub their face. They rub their face. Of course, some of them, the young ones, get very sleepy and very distracted. But it's amazing how young children also like to appreciate meditating, sitting quietly, and not worrying about their student, their friend next to them, whether they have a better pen or pencil than themselves or whatever. They just focus on their breath for a little while. So we adults, we also need this, because actually, in general, I think we adults have a lot more tension than those young children. They still tend to be quite relaxed and playful, depending also on many factors. But we, on the other hand, I think everyone in front of me is at least, I don't know. Most people in front of me are at least 20 years old. And on the screen, I think, yes, everyone is probably, yes, at least 20 years old, 25, 30. So we've had a lot of experience in holding on to ourselves, or getting uptight, that word I've used, tightening ourselves to protect ourselves. Protect from what? Oh, protect from what we perceive to be something that might not be so nice for us, might threaten us. And also, of course, there's tension involved in wanting something. We want something very badly, or just a little bit, but there's tension. Will I get what I want? Will this thing or person that I don't want, when will they be, out of my space? When will I be able to be free of them? When will this danger go away, or this thing I don't like? So our whole life for 30, 40, 50, and some of us even older than that, for so many years has been pushing away certain things and trying to pull certain things into our sphere of influence. We're like a spider, the middle of a web, checking what is happening around the web. If there's something which looks very tasty and nice, one goes and gobbles it up. And if there's a danger, if you ever tried to put your finger close to a spider, it knows exactly what to do. It runs away. Of course, if it's a bigger animal, then it may eat you up. But a spider, it just runs away. So you see, our whole life is like this. Pushing, pulling, pushing, pulling. Yeah, you get the idea. So what does this do? It gives us a it reinforces a big, messy, sticky sense of me. Moi, I, me, mine. I, me, mine. So powerful. We can check this. It's not just Buddhist theory. This is actual. This is a fact. Don't you think so? Check it. How do you feel right now? How do you feel right now when you remember something that is bothering you in your life? If there's nothing bothering you in your life, fantastic, really, congratulations. You're a very lucky person. But if there's something bothering you, think about it. How do you feel when you think about it? What happens? Try to examine what is happening in your body and in your sort of whole overall awareness when you think of something that is really not very nice, which is happening. And if it's not too painful, think of something from the past that happened. I say not too painful because I don't want people here to be reliving all their traumas. But think of something not so nice, or some food that you had to eat, which you didn't like at all. How does that make you feel? What happens? Hmm. I don't know if any of you have ever had experienced an electric shock, even a small electric shock. What happens, in my experience, that there's this real kind of almost terror and instinctive reaction to, of course, pull the hand towards the body, and somehow one feels very, very vulnerable and solid at that point. You feel very, very that there is a really solid person here who almost, who got a shock and who's maybe lucky to be alive. Can you remember ever having had an electric shock or something similar, or something very hot which you touched? How does that make you feel? There's the physical reaction, right? There's a physical reaction, but then there's also something else. I don't know, it's like a constriction or a fear connected with not just the body. It's like, me. Something happened to me. Is that what it felt like for you? Just think about it. Try to remember. Although it's difficult, I know, to remember. It might be difficult. There was a friend of mine, when she got this shock, it's like she started crying afterwards. Long after, the body had disengaged from the source of the shock, they started crying, the shock of it, the aftershock, the mental shock due to the holding on to, the emotional holding on to oneself. It leads to all kinds of symptoms, even crying and being afraid, very somehow shaken. So this can happen in many ways, not just electric shock. Somebody can say something to you and you immediately feel the shock. You feel a real shock. Say somebody says to you, oh, you did this, you did that. You said this to me. You said this to that person. And say it's not true, that this person has got it wrong, but they say this to you. How do you feel? They're accusing me, saying these nasty things to me. And I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything. They're accusing me. Feel really, especially if it's someone you have some problem with, maybe you're very competitive or have some issue with your brother, sister, or, whoever, father, mother. And then they say this, you feel so, oh, wow. You feel so solid, don't you? Such a solid sense of I have been wrongly accused. As you feel so outraged, so you feel somehow so solid, like concrete. You don't feel gentle and soft, like maybe previous night you went to a party and they were playing your favorite music, right? And you were dancing and you felt so soft and gentle and somehow flowing, right? You just felt you were oneness with the music even. And now you feel so solid. You feel so solid, so hurt. So this is what we investigate. This is what the Buddha is asking us to investigate, because Buddha and countless yogis and yoginis, meaning people who really meditate, those people after the Buddha have said that this solid I me, mine, mine in the sense my country, my friend, my wife, my husband, my blah, blah, my money. This is my money, not your money. All of that is like a kind of a dream. It's like a hallucination based on ignorance, a very basic ignorance, confusion. It doesn't exist the way that it feels like it exists. And the Buddha even said that, went as far as to say in one place that everything I've taught so as to gradually bring the students to an understanding of this point, the lack of solid self, lack of that kind of solid, independent feeling self, or what we call anatta, or selflessness in Buddhism, anatta, anatma. This is one of the basics of Buddhism, together with impermanence and suffering. So this is what we'll begin to investigate today, or continue to investigate today. And you see, this sense of self has been built up over 20, 30, 40, 50 or more years on our habits of protecting ourselves, our habits of reaching out and trying to grasp what we want, our habits based on fear, on wanting, hope and fear, expectation. Expectation, that's a big one. Expectation. And then the anger that arises often when we don't get what we want. And then when we get what we want, how long does that last, that pleasure, that satisfaction, you know? So our whole lives we've been trying to feed, nourish this I, holding on to it, grasping it, trying to make it happy. Sometimes seeing more the body as I, sometimes seeing the opinion we hold as I. That is what we cling to most. Sometimes we cling to the body more, sometimes to our feeling, sometimes to something from the past. Sometimes we're clinging more to some idea about the future. But whatever we're doing, we're holding tightly to some sense of there is this center somewhere, the center of gravity, a solid center, which is me, which is experiencing all this stuff. We feel that so strongly. And it's not happy. It's not happy enough. It wants more. It is easily hurt. And we know that. Maybe not in ourselves, but some people we know, you even look at them slightly the wrong way, they get so upset, you know. You don't give them exactly what they want in the way they want it, they get very upset. But we all have this very vulnerable, heavy, troublesome, solid sense of me, I. So check if what I'm saying makes any sense to you at all. Do you have that sense? Especially in situations where there is some difficulty, or the example of the electric shock, or somebody accusing you. Have you felt extremely uptight at that time? So what is that? You could begin to ask, who is feeling uptight in that situation? So which part of you is feeling uptight when you have that situation? Is it your part of your body? Is it in the heart? Is it in the stomach? Is something in the head feels like it's being accused? Which aspect of your mind, and our mind is very complex, it's made up of, according to the Buddhist division, many, many mental factors, 51 mental factors, countless other sorts of factors. We have feelings, we have perceptions, we have mental factors, we have 5 main physical, you could say, consciousnesses connected with eye, ear, nose, tongue, touch. Then we have the mental consciousness. So which one of these has been insulted? Is there anything else apart from all of this? It's like a very, very complex, let's say a very complex, should we choose a machine or a food? Well, let's say you have a very complex Indian Hyderabadi biryani, say, not that I eat the biryani much, but you have a biryani with many, many different ingredients. Yeah. So you isolate all these ingredients, the meat, the peas, the saffron, the rice, maybe some bits of potato, some cardamom, some maybe even some ginger, maybe garlic, maybe black pepper, all these different things. So which one is the biryani? Where is this solid biryani? What would you point to as being the biryani? And similarly, what would you point to that has been upset by what somebody said? Which part of you? Where is this I which feels? Because it does feel like there's a very solid person called so-and-so, whatever your name is, and this person has been wrongly accused by so-and-so, and it's hurting very much. Because you feel such a solid sense of yourself. If you felt spacious, like you felt when you were dancing at the party, then you wouldn't feel anything. If somebody shouts something while you're dancing, it wouldn't have so much effect. Because your body is in movement, you're in a different state of mind, much more relaxed, much more with the flow, yeah? In the zone, they say, the sports people. So where is this? What is this solid thing that comes up? This is to be investigated. There's no easy, quick answer. Because we have been embellishing, we have been fixing things on this solid sense of I, associating things with this sense of I for so many years. The Buddha would say so many lifetimes, countless lifetimes. So of course, not something easy to understand or to let go of. Now let's try some meditation briefly, which is connected with this, and I think it'll make it clearer for some people, all of us, and especially maybe beginning people. So we go back to the breath awareness we were doing, okay? So just bring your attention to your breathing. And we'll do a little experiment connected with the breathing. Generate a sense of relaxing by letting go with the out breath. Thought, sensation, anything can arise in the mind, right? In the awareness. What if we began to regard this so-called mind or awareness, this consciousness, as vast, like an open sky, okay? Like an open sky, space. Not the Delhi sky of this morning, full of pollution necessarily, but say an open sky where you can see the blue of the sky, like in Kathmandu or Australia had wonderful skies. So there's the sky, okay, which we're saying is like our mind. Now, in the sky, many things can arise, okay, birds, clouds, aeroplanes, rain, lightning. If you're in Delhi, then a lot of smoke, pollution, dust. All these things can arise. They come and go. This is the point. They come and they go. They're not fixed. Clouds don't stay in the sky and stick there for years, do they? They come and go, they come and go. Beyond that, there's the space of the sky. So vast. It can contain anything. So in one way, would you agree that in one way, nothing can disturb the spaciousness of the sky? That it allows room for everything. And these things we get so, caught up with, angry with, or lustful with. They're just coming and going in the space of the sky. Like clouds, like a fast-moving aeroplane or a balloon or a kite. There are kite festivals where these kites are going madly around in space and people are trying to cut each other's kites, but it's just all happening in this space, And then a few hours later, the space is completely vast and open, nothing there. So mind is like space. It's not space, it's like space. It's not exactly space in a sense because it has awareness. We can be aware of things. We can know things. Or the technical term, we can cognize things, which has a similar root as gyan, jnan in Sanskrit, knowing, wisdom, knowledge. So if things are coming and going in the space of the sky, the space of the mind, what need to worry so much about them? Can we not be a little less sticky about them? We can just let them come and go. Can we? No need to identify with them. So, okay. So now to come back to some theory, if you like, but very, very theory which is connected so closely to something so useful. In this wonderful book by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, How to See Yourself as You Really Are. Good title, huh? How to See Yourself as You Really Are. Not the hallucination, the dreamlike world we're in, according to several of the great religions, not that. According to His Holiness in this book. Anyway, he is quoting a very great Indian thinker and yogi and logician called Dharmakirti. Dharmakirti said this, and this is, of course, translation from the Buddhist Sanskrit. In somebody who exaggerates their self, and I'm also adding a few words to make it clearer, anybody who exaggerates the self, then there's always grasping or adherence to I. Through that adherence or sticking onto or grasping, there is attachment to pleasure. Through attachment, disadvantages are obscured, meaning disadvantages of the object of attachment are obscured, and you only see advantages in the object of attachment. Whereby there is very strong attachment, the attachment gets stronger. And therefore, objects that we feel are mine are taken up as means of achieving pleasure. This is all very deep, by the way. This is all very meaningful for our daily life. Therefore, as long as there is attraction to this kind of self, so long will you go round and round in the vicious circle of existence, samsara, sangsar, cyclic existence. We go round and round like somebody who is taken some, some substance which makes them crazy. They go round and round in circles. They don't know they're going round in circles. Confused, driven by attachment, anger, jealousy, pride, and so forth. Just going round and round from one pleasure to another, one suffering to another. According to Buddha, all of it is suffering. It's all some kind of unsatisfactoriness. It's like the sky when it is totally full of pollution and all kinds of things, then there is a sense of suffering. There's a sense of constriction, a lack of space. What the Buddha called dukkha, which is also a modern Hindi word for suffering, pain. So the nature of our mind, in one sense, is like space, open, vast. But due to our ignorance, holding on to I, we fill the space with all kinds of nonsense. But unfortunately, nonsense we believe in. We hold on to it and we suffer. I wonder is this making any sense to beginning people, or is it like nonsense? Yeah? I dare not ask our French friends. Does it make any sense? Oui? Un peu? Un petit peu? No? Okay. I think our French friends are dumbfounded. No problem. Well, there is a problem, but what to do? What to do? So the point is, the Buddha said, and many, many great beings since then and meditators have also found this through their experience, that the superficial mind is full of hopes and fears and expectations and thoughts and disturbing emotions, one after another. The deeper mind, if you like to use a simple term, when we go deeper, there is a very different story. Or in fact, there's no story. There's peace, there is spaciousness, there is openness, there's warmth, there's a natural intelligence, a natural kindness. And we can roughly call that like, Buddha nature. We call it the Buddha nature. This ability to this potential for vastness, for spaciousness. It's our natural inheritance, but because we are, in a sense, stupid and confused, we've made a mess of our inheritance, or we have hidden. The inheritance is covered up with our garbage we've accumulated. Somebody gave us, or we had a very precious diamond, but due to carelessness and our greed, we covered it up with so much garbage, we no longer know it's there. We forgot it's there. That's the point. We even forgot that it's there. And now we don't know how to, get hold of it. Not that you can get hold of it. We don't know how to uncover it. We'll have some discussion soon, don't worry. A lot of things to discuss. There's many ways of talking about the Buddha nature. In a conversation with one of his students, a Tibetan Lama called Sokni Rinpoche says this. Each of us is gifted with the ability to recognize within ourselves an astonishing capacity for brilliance, kindness, generosity, courage. We also have the potential to awaken everyone with whom we come in contact to the possibility of greatness. The possibility of greatness. So we become virtuosos to the extent that we develop our potential to the point at which, even without our conscious intention, our actions and our words serve to awaken others. We can awaken others, wake others up, not just ourselves. We have the capacity. But what's happening excuse me. What is happening right now? We are perpetually recreating suffering. In the words of one teacher, we are perpetually recreating suffering through holding on to this I, me, mine. So one teacher puts it this way, a short reading. The origin of our pain, of suffering, is based on the belief in some kind of lasting self, in eternity, some belief in eternity. And out of that belief in eternity comes the hope that we could maintain ourselves. We could, maintain ourselves, like, maintaining a garden, maintaining anything, a house. We want to maintain ourselves. We have to maintain this I. So out of this comes the hope of maintaining oneself, of continuing to be, the search for longevity of the self or ego. Along with that will come a fear of death. And we look for all sorts of alternatives, for ways to be busy, to occupy ourselves. We keep groping around in order to survive. That's a good word. Groping around. I don't know. Sorry, I don't know the French for that. Groping around. It's like you can't see properly. You're just kind of groping. Your hands are going out in different directions, trying to find something, trying to find something to hold on to, which will stabilize you. We keep groping around in order to survive, and that groping process is connected with the development of the disturbing emotions. We begin to look outward from ourselves to others, out into the world, and we grasp at the world, things in the world, as a way of maintaining ourselves. We use the world as a crutch. We use the world as a crutch, as a walking stick, like old people use it, sick people, injured people. We use the world as a crutch. That's a good phrase. That process leads to suffering as a result, because the various ways we try to maintain ourselves do not actually help to maintain us. In fact, they hinder us. So our little scheme begins to break down. The more it breaks down, the more we have to rebuild as that rebuilding takes place, the suffering returns. So again and again, we have to go back to trying to rebuild. It's a vicious cycle. The process of samsara goes on and on. We have to understand its workings. But once we know how it operates, we know how to work with it. We'll know what to overcome, what to cultivate. What is perpetuating our samsara? Adherence to self. And based on that, there's all the thoughts that are coming up connected with that. This author uses a very interesting phrase, the power of flickering thoughts. There can just be flickerings of thoughts and they'll build up into something, you know. You can be passing a chai shop and you don't really need chai, or, you know, or a mall, and you remember there's a flicker of a thought that, yeah, there's something in that mall that you saw before that you would like to see again or buy or something, a flickering of thought, and then you're distracted by something else, and again that thought comes, and before you know it, you're in that mall and you are, you know, paying for something, buying something, or, you know, having something you want to drink or eat. It's the power of flickering thoughts. This is going on and on and on, recreating our world, you know, recreating our search for satisfaction. But because we're looking outside, we can never be fully satisfied. It's like having a projector, which is the lens is dirty, and we keep on insisting on going up front and trying to clean the screen on the wall, or painting the wall again and again, and thinking, oh, why isn't it now turning out clean? You know, well, it's because, you know, the lens is dirty, the projector is dirty. So our minds in our present state are so confused, so hallucinating, according to the teachings. We're hallucinating reality, thinking it's so solid, lasting, that there's no hope of having a clear picture on the screen. What we're seeing is a projection of our own hallucination, our ignorance. You know, so that tragically in the world, when some people hear about some other people or see them, they regard them as the enemy. You know, and we don't even need to have interacted with such people. We already feel they're the enemy through just hearing their name. If that isn't a hallucination, I don't know what is. How can someone be an enemy whom hasn't done anything to you, whom you haven't met, who is a human being, say, who wants to be happy, doesn't want to suffer, you know, and they're your enemy? This is crazy. You want to harm them. You want to shout about them, against them, or, you know, and other people are your friends whom you will shout for, you know, on behalf of them, and even kill for them, of course. So this is all due to a kind of hallucination. Not a kind, it is a hallucination. Grasping onto things as very, very, very solid. It's very interesting. And very painful, isn't it? You can be observing world events and see a lot of this going on. We feel very, very sorry for young children and babies in incubators, but we're quite happy to kill adults. Of course, children die too, but we're quite happy to kill adults in the name of our country, of our whatever, our nation, because they're the enemy. So if you have made an enemy, that means you have solidified that person into something very solid. This is a real enemy, you know. And of course, that's nonsense, because nobody is a permanent real enemy. It's not possible. Yeah, you can hold on to them being your enemy for a whole lifetime, but that's it. When you die, that's it. And even, for example, this wonderful example from the, I think, First World War, which is a horrible war, the trench warfare, conducted mainly in France, northern France. Hundreds, thousands died, you know. Anyway, I heard that luckily, because they were all human beings, yeah. The Germans were human beings, the French were human beings, the British soldiers were human beings. At Christmas, they decided to have a truce to stop killing each other as enemies for a few days or a day. And they got together, they sang songs, they exchanged wine. I guess there was a lot of wine. It was France, maybe still some wine. They had some wine, they sang some songs, they, shook each other's hands for a day. And the next day went back to killing each other. So it shows how stupid it is. Where's the permanent enemy? Where's the solid enemy? How come they suddenly became a friend, one day because of Christmas? And all exchanging cigarettes, and next day you're trying to kill the guy. So it just shows ignorance solidifies things. Reality is actually not like that. Reality is much more fluid. If they'd had more time, then these men, of course, they were all men in that war, I guess, on the front line, they'll be talking to each other about their families, their wives, their girlfriends, their children, their brothers and sisters, their parents, what food they eat back home. And the French would be saying, oh, what disgusting food you British people have, and etc. Because in those days, British food was boring. Now, maybe better, a bit better. So anyway, the point is, where is the real friend? Where is the real enemy? The solid enemy. So now they're having 4 days of truce, in the Middle East. After that, they'll go back to killing each other. Or at least that's the plan. There's just 4 days where some people can be released, and we see the very moving videos of people being, reunited with their relations after so many days as a hostage. Very lovely, very beautiful. But then they go back to killing each other, It's terrible. This all comes from solidifying. Thinking, for example, and I'm sorry to keep on taking this example, and I don't think there's any Israelis or Palestinians here online. Anyway, two-state solution, have you heard of that? Very simple in one way. You have a little state for Israel, for Israelis, Jews, you have another one for Palestinians. What's the big deal? Well, it's a big deal for people. How can we live with the enemy, so close? And of course, they have a point. Israel is very small. It's a very small country. I know, because I've been there. It's a very small country. But what do you want? You want to fight each other forever? It's so crazy, no? All comes from this solid sense of I, me, my history. We were here first 3,000 years ago. Oh, no, we were here first. Come on, You feel like saying to people, grow up. But we know we cannot say that to people because we ourselves are so confused. We ourselves live our life based on friend, enemy, stranger, etc., etc., and say very foolish things to, nasty things to enemies, and also very foolish things to friends sometimes. So, we hold on to things tightly. So therefore, no, this could never happen. Why? Because they killed my child. So what, you want to hold on to that forever? Is that what you want to hold on to? Why do you hold on to it? My child, my real child was killed. So of course I don't want to live close to these people. I want to kill these people. Understandable human emotion, but it's based on ignorance. And does it help? No, it doesn't help the world. Even if there's peace tomorrow in Israel and Gaza, think of the future. The hatred that's built up, the pain doesn't go away. Not for ordinary people like us who don't know how to meditate, don't know how to deconstruct the self. They'll be lucky just to have any food or medicine. They're not going to get meditation lessons on how to deconstruct the self and, transform the enemy into a friend through meditation. Who's going to teach people that? Some maybe will learn. But out of 2.3 million people in Gaza, I wonder how many will be that happy. I guess actually quite a few might be happy to live in peace with the Israelis because they have families, right? They have children. They don't want to fight. Actually, most people don't want to fight. But Yeah, to live peacefully and happily with each other, not easy. But then even in India, we can't live happily and peacefully with each other. So what to expect of the Middle East? All of this comes from holding on to the I and mine. Me, my religion, my society, my country, my history. And I tell you, history is very powerful in the Middle East, as of course it is also in India to some extent. Very powerful. My history. And my history may conflict with your version of history. So then there's a big problem. So what we need is more spaciousness and more basic intelligence, which comes from letting go of this tight sense of the self, having a Christmas truce, sharing with human beings. That's one example. So we can make friends with our minds, with our emotions, with the so-called enemy, and see that actually it's much nicer to spend Christmas with each other than kill each other, you know. So that's the potential. If they could do it in the First World War, and take that as an analogy, why can't we do that with our own minds? Make friends with the disturbing factors in our minds, begin to see things more clearly. But this won't happen without practice. The words sound very nice. Words like spaciousness, space, I love them. They're great words, actually. But then we have to practice to feel that sense of space. That there's room for everything, and we don't have to go gaga, you know, just because some thought or emotion is going through our mind. Yeah, let it come, let it go. That sense, like a cloud. Maybe a very black cloud, it may release a lot of rain and there's flooding, that's okay, then it goes. You don't need to hold on to it. So to not hold on, we need to see how that which is holding on, the I, the solid me, is not what it seems. It doesn't exist the way it appears. So how does it exist? It exists depending upon many factors. So here we have what in Buddhism we call dependent arising. Dependent arising. This is one of the main teachings of the Buddha. In fact, some Dalai Lama said that, you know, Buddha's slogan is dependent arising. Philosophically, you know, you could say the dependent arising, and in action, what happens therefore in action? When we understand dependent arising, the action is compassion. We act then compassionately when we understand dependent arising, that everything is connected, linked. Nagarjuna, Nagarjuna is here on the wall. He had a great student, Aryadeva, one-eyed Aryadeva. He said, all disturbing emotions can be overcome through overcoming ignorance. And when you see dependent arising, then ignorance cannot arise, does not arise. What does dependent arising refer to? Refers to the fact that all impermanent things, all impermanent phenomena, whether they are physical or mental or otherwise, they come into existence depending upon certain causes and conditions. So whatever is arising depending upon causes and conditions is obviously not operating exclusively under its own power. So therefore, when the baby cries and makes a mess or has diarrhea, the mother doesn't get angry with the baby. She investigates the causes of why the baby is behaving like that. And understanding it, she develops compassion and gets the remedy, tries to find the remedy. When people are behaving badly, we do not get angry at the person. We understand how it's the negative emotion which is the problem. So we try to find out what is causing that person to have that disturbing emotion, and we try to help that person, or at least we understand that person. And in fact, as I have said in many previous talks, the French have a very good expression. that to understand is to forgive. Yeah, maybe it's comprendre, c'est pardonner, something like that. If you understand what's happening, then you can forgive. Otherwise, everything seems so solid. They're so solidly evil. They're so bad. No, when we understand dependent arising, we know why people are behaving the way they are, that it's due to causes and conditions. The same as when we behave badly, it's due to causes and conditions. Not that we ourselves are totally inherently bad to the core. Nobody's like that. Buddha says actually we are Buddhas. We are Buddhas, temporarily confused, but we are hibernating Buddhas. Yeah, kind of. Let's have some discussion, otherwise all of this will go in blah blah. I hope all you onliners have been suitably entertained. Anilji, Tia probably is, yeah, exasperated by my lack of Gelugpa logic, which I've not employed. Okay, folks, so I'm going to allow you to unmute yourselves. And the people here, I'm sorry if I put you to sleep or disturbed your minds, but anything? Okay. Latecomers can ask questions first. Yes, Haji.
Apologies.
Yes.
Yeah, question. Can you describe Buddha nature, Guruji? Like,
can I describe Buddha nature? Not really. There's a whole text on this by Maitreya called the Uttara Tantra Shastra, but it is said to be the fundamental. It's connected with emptiness. It's connected with the fundamental clear light consciousness. And it's also connected with the fact that at the very base, beneath all this tsunami of unwholesome emotions and so forth, underneath all of that, although underneath is not a good term, but more profound than that, at a very deep level, is a state of mind that is spacious, it is very intelligent, and it is full of potential warmth and kindness. This is how it's described in very simple terms. And the reason we don't have access to it is we're caught up with the superficial reality. Sorry, I'm going to just mute you all because somebody's microphone online is causing a lot of interference. Sorry about that. Yeah. So, does that make sense? You could read a lot more about that. Of course, there are short texts on it and there are fat texts on Buddha nature. There's a booklet by, I think, who was it? Well, Trungpa Rinpoche has written on it, but also there's one book from the Library of Tibetan Works and Archives, and I can't remember exactly who wrote it. Maybe Geshe Sonam Rinchen, I'm not sure. But Buddha nature is referring to a potential we have. That's one way of looking at it, our potential for great wisdom, spacious mind, and so forth. And the other way of looking at it also is that it's the natural emptiness of the mind. So our mind is just as empty of inherent existence as the Buddha's mind is. So that's one reason why we can evolve into Buddhas, because nothing is fixed. It's all empty. So depending on what we engage in, we can activate, if you like, or uncover the Buddha potential within us. I don't know if Ajirji or anybody online would like to add more, because some of you have had teachings on this. Tia, you may have had teachings or studied Buddha nature. Would you care to add anything to the very, very skeletal things I've said? You have a sun hat on. Where are you?
I'm up on a sunny roof.
On a sunny roof. Wow. Well, I'm feeling envious, but what to do? So what is Buddha nature then? You're muted.
Sorry, nothing to add. I mean, what can I add? But there were 9
Well-
similes of the Buddha nature that we studied in the Uttara Tantra Shastra that
good,
I
good.
found quite useful. Yeah.
Yes. So one of the examples would be what? Of the
You know,
Buddha.
like a king in a barren woman's womb, or like
Barren woman's womb.
yeah, it's very strange. And like a statue of a Buddha covered over with clay. Then honey in a hive. Yeah, something like that. Something like
Or the treasure
Can't be
buried
seen.
underground.
like a treasure buried underground. Yes. Yeah.
Under the hut of a very poor person. Yeah.
Mm.
Who doesn't know the treasures there. Yeah, these are these called similes or analogies?
Similes,
These are
metaphors.
similes.
Yeah.
Whatever they are,
More
they're
different
quite
areas.
useful.
Yeah.
These examples of Buddha nature. So it's like, yeah, we have this treasure like consciousness, like a wonderful thing. If we could access it, we would not have suffering, and we would have all positive qualities, but we don't know it's there because we're so caught up with, Sturm und Drang, as the Germans say, all this, or tamasha, as we say in Hindi, just big deal, always such a big deal happening. We're all sort of drama kings and queens, creating a big hullabaloo with all the disturbances in our mind. We never have any kind of real peaceful, calm moments, or not for long. Yeah, it's like a storm. Our mind is like a storm a lot of the time. Or at least, there's too much wind. It's very crowded also, very crowded mind, which is interestingly one of the ways that suffering is described by some teachers, that suffering is a crowded mind. And the mind, Buddha mind, or the mind of happiness is a mind where there is spaciousness. The spaciousness is contacted. One is not identifying with any crowdedness. And as we are reminded, the world of 19th century science and before was exploded, of course, end of the 19th, early 20th century by quantum mechanics and so forth, and the research into the atom, which found that there's more space than anything else in these very tiny, what we call building blocks or whatever reality of the world of phenomena. There's more space than any solid matter, much more space, much more spaciousness than anything which could be called solid. So that's also very interesting, because we experience a very solid world, don't we? We're sitting on chairs and cushions which don't give way, right? So we think everything's very solid. But it's not. Even science says it's not. So what is going on? We have to investigate. Because it's okay. It's nice to have a solid chair that you don't fall through. But how about having a solid, nasty emotion come up, which makes you so upset you lose your appetite and you don't want to talk to somebody for 10 years? I mean, what about that? That feels very solid too. But that kind of solid needs to be investigated. It doesn't matter too much in one way right now, whether the chair falls apart or not. Hopefully it doesn't. But these powerful emotions, we need to see how they are not what they seem. They are not so solid. And we can experiment with that, actually. When we have strong anger or attachment, and we keep on thinking about the object of that anger or attachment, how about just watching the anger or the attachment, the actual emotion itself, without the thought or the image, just to feel the anger or the attachment within the body, just kind of being with it, staring at it, then what happens? Can it remain the same without the constant thinking and image making? We can experiment. Next time you get really angry or very passionately involved with something, examine the mind. How does it feel? Don't think about the object. Come back into the mind, the feeling tone, the actual awareness of the emotion. And then what happens? What do you think? Where's Anilji? He's disappeared.
Sir,
Oh.
I had a question.
Thanks, Tia. Yes. Who was that?
Sir,
That
Lenin.
Ah,
Lenin, sir, Lenin.
Jay.
Sir, regarding hope and fear,
Open fear.
is it the superficial mind that is trying to maintain itself? So it is busy in hope and fear, the cycle. I mean,
What
what
do you think?
exactly?
Well, when we say superficial, we have to be careful. Superficial here doesn't necessarily mean that it's useless or without any purpose at all. Superficial can just mean literally something that's on the surface rather than deep. But yeah, we would say that somebody who is deeply engaged in a certain kind of meditation practice, they will not feel any hope or fear. You know, hope and fear is something that a more superficial, ordinary, you could say, state of mind gets involved with, you know, due to habit patterns and anxieties and other things that have built up for many years. We have hopes and fears. That's how we operate very often. So in that sense, it's a more superficial state of mind, but it's a habit that we built up over maybe countless lifetimes. It's very much a part of how we operate. But yeah, in the sense that it's like waves on the surface of the deep ocean, yeah, in that sense, it is superficial. If we go deep into the ocean, there is calm. There's no question of hope and fear when we go deep enough. And, you know, there's no question of waves when we go deep enough. There may still be some movement of water, but then if we get right to the bottom, maybe we might say that there's hardly any movement of water. In any case, this is just an example. Yeah, does that make any?
The mind is so it is it the superficial mind that is trying to maintain itself?
Exactly.
That superficial mind is trying to survive.
That's one way of looking at it. Yes, that's the way the ego mind, the egoic, the self-centered ego mind maintains itself. Yes. If we didn't have these constant messages and hopes and fears, the ego might feel neglected or starved of oxygen, and then it would panic, and then it would definitely create some tamasha to keep itself, you know, to make us feel that it's real.
So that means it's not really happiness or something pleasure it is looking for. It is basically looking for survival, just to remain alive.
You know, you could say in one way, so long as you don't feel that it's some little person inside you trying to do this. This is an aspect of the ignorance that is in our mind that we got used to since beginningless time, and it's trying to maintain itself. Yeah.
Thank you.
And for some people, when they begin to see the gap in the clouds, if you like, and begin to see that it's not so real, for most people, there would be some sense of fear initially, that one is losing oneself. And for some fortunate people, it is said that experience gives rise to tremendous joy because they've had some experience of it in the past. So when they experience that lack of solid self, they feel joy. For most of us, we would feel probably some discomfort or even fear. But, you know, what's happening? I'm losing myself. My sense of myself is disintegrating. It would be very uncomfortable for most of us who want the comfort of of a good solid castle, good solid castle of the self. We don't want it to be, it's disturbing. Yeah, we have to defend the castle, but it's what we know, it's what we're used to, and it's very upsetting to begin to lose it, or to feel that it has lots of holes in it or gaps. I mean, face it, we're so upset sometimes when our schedule gets changed. Some small thing has to change. So what need mention when our very sense of self is threatened by some spiritual practice or some event in our life? We could get very upset, very afraid, and feel that one could be very afraid. So teachers speaking to their students say that if you have that experience, you're going deep enough in meditation, you just have to stay with the fear. You have to face the fear and not give in to that fear. And then it goes away, they say.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Good, very good question. What else, folks?
Can I speak, sir?
Yes, please.
What if myself, the concrete one, is shredded to pieces in the course of meditating? Is it possible?
Well, that's where it would happen, most likely. But then one would hope that one was under the guidance of a qualified teacher, and then one was able to work with that experience. It's unlikely that the shredding would happen in one session. So it could happen over periods of time. But yeah, I guess there might come a session where you feel your ego has been shredded, and then you have to be ready for that. But I haven't had that experience of my ego being shredded to that extent, so I can't help you with that. You would have to really ask that question of someone who has well and truly shredded their ego. Yeah, shredding is an interesting word. I think of shredded wheat, which is what we used to eat in England. But yeah, shredding, you mean shredding, yeah, not shedding. You mean shred, yeah, to chop it up into pieces, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, partly the Abhidhamma teachings do this. When we begin to see the categories, the way mind is broken up into different categories in the Abhidhamma. They speak of 75 categories of phenomena, 51 mental factors, and so forth. That is very interesting to study, because then one sees what the Buddhist philosophers say is actually what we are made up of, and what we like to put, kind of bring together, glue all together, and consider some kind of real I, on solid I. But actually, it's a whole bunch of different things operating. Different things, are happening at different times, and they're all impermanent. All these different factors, different channels are firing at different times, is how one author puts it, I think very brilliantly. We have all these different channels on the TV of our so-called mind, and at different times, different channels are operating, are firing. But somehow, because of our ignorance, we mash it all together and think of a real I, a solid me is there. Not there. If we check carefully, there's just different things happening at different times, split second by split second. There's nothing solid there at all. At all. According to all of the great meditators, philosophers, and of course back to the Buddha, there is no solid me. It is a total hallucination built up through ignorance over beginningless time. So of course we believe it. As we all believe stories we are told about people or something, if that story is repeated to us often enough, we'll believe it, right? So we've been telling ourselves this story since beginningless time. Beginningless time, according to Buddha. Cannot count your previous lifetimes when we've had this ignorance operating. So of course it's very deeply held. Yeah. But through various practices, and there's a lot of graded meditations in this book, How to See Yourself as You Really Are, which I'm putting up now in front of you on the screen. How to See Yourself as You Really Are by Dalai Lama and Jeffrey Hopkins. Practical Guide to Self-Knowledge is the subtitle. And it's probably a different editions now. This was a rider edition from 2006, but I'm pretty sure, rather 2008, but there will have been other editions since then. How to See Yourself as You Really Are. We'll do some more exercises from that maybe on Monday and Tuesday. Any more input before we finish? You've had these sessions are very bargain sessions, you know, they give you almost 2 hours. Yeah.
I had a quick question.
Yes.
Yes, so you know, it's a little bit of a complex question, I guess. But in practicing, you know, resting into awareness or resting into spaciousness and spacious mind, what's the best way to deal with other intentions then coming up? You know, or seeing the desire to see phenomena as self or no self, and then the mind maybe getting contracted around that. So how does one have to maintain a sort of constant meta-cognitive vigilance, or because that feels
Meta-cognitive vigilance. Now you're a philosopher, sir. I think I know what you mean by meta-cognitive vigilance. Yes, in a sense, yes, you have to have that overriding view, as though you have a very spacious aerial view of things. So you're not stuck in any particular, groove or valley or channel or, nala. You can see the whole picture. There's a spaciousness there. Imagine you're a drone or something, and you're going over this landscape, and these little, things that you got caught up with or stuck in on the ground, you can see the space of it. You can see the spaciousness of everything. You can see the space between things and maybe even in things. And you can see it all as a projection of your mind and not get so, caught up in it. I mean, part of the problem, don't you think, is we can't stop thinking about things. We will begin to analyze everything when actually at a certain point analysis needs to stop, or certain kinds of analysis needs to stop, especially for some people. I'm not saying not for everyone. Maybe for some people, analytical, really a lot of analytical investigation is the way, until, of course, that point where you have to go beyond it. One has to go beyond thoughts and images. But yeah, what to say, except that if that's the kind of awareness we're trying to generate, we have to develop the sense that mind is like sky, like space. Everything is just coming and going, and that's it. There is nothing to hook, nothing to hook me. I'm not going to be a fish who gets hooked by a tasty morsel, floating in the water. I'm just going to observe, and without even a sense of being an observer. There is just observation, there's just awareness. Awareness itself. And easy to say. These are lovely words, aren't they? But awfully difficult to practice. And to practice properly, as you know, one needs to do a lot of purification practice, accumulation of positive energy. That's why lamas keep on giving students plenty of things to do, lots of practices to engage in, to work off this arrogance of the I, me, mine, which is always getting in the way, creating the center creating the thoughts and images and opinions, and all of that garbage, you could say, comes from believing I have a center, that there is a real I, me, mine, the center of everything. And so therefore, that has to be seen for what it is, a hallucination, like a dream. And of course, then we feel compassion for ourselves and for all beings who are caught up in this hallucination. Because yes, from this point of view, all war, all famine, all sufferings in this world are rooted in that hallucination. If there were no ignorance, there would be none of what is happening like this in the world, There would be no suffering. Because there would be no clinging to I, there would be no disturbing emotions, there would be no negative karma. So there would be no ripening of negative karma. Any karma that existed would be positive karma, which gives rise to happiness. And sorry, long-winded answer to your question, but really I can't answer your question properly. Only a great meditator can answer your question. But there are some, of course, people who you can read rather than others. You can read His Holiness or some of the great Dzogchen masters, Mahamudra masters. You can't really go wrong, I think, with people like Situ Rinpoche, Mingyu Rinpoche, His Holiness Dalai Lama, Sokni Rinpoche, what Lama Zopa Rinpoche has written, and Lama Yeshe also wrote on Mahamudra. So those kind of things, of course, they're coming from realized people. That could be helpful. A book I've been finding very helpful recently is Open Heart, Open Mind by Sokni Rinpoche, who's a brother of the now quite famous Mingyu Rinpoche. Open Heart, Open Mind. Very, very good, because he speaks so much from his own experience, his anecdotes, his experience, and his discussions with Western students. It's very useful. Okay, we'll stop now. We'll dedicate. Okay, there's one message has come. Let's see what this. To the person who was talking about shredding of the self, says Sahil, I was reminded of the difference between the self system and self in psychology, or more accurately, as Jack Engler put it, the difference between the psychological and the ontological self. And according to him, Buddhism argues for the absence of ontological self, but not for the psychological self or the self system. That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, we don't throw away the self completely. That would be ridiculous, because then we'd have to say there is no I. Then I wouldn't be able to say I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm hungry, I'm going to get up and go. That would be a nonsense if there's no I or no self whatsoever. We're not saying that. Buddhism is not saying there's no self, there's no psychological self at all. We're not saying that. We're saying there's no inherently existing self, or what you are calling here the ontological self, perhaps. There is no inherently existing self. Anything that exists is the dependent arising. So what does our self depend on? All these 75, 51 categories of factors that are mentioned in the Abhidhamma, all of that goes together. We lump them together and call them the 5 aggregates, if we add the body as well, and we call that a person. And ignorance, of course, comes along and says, that's not enough for me. This is a real me. There's a real me. It's not just don't just call this a merely labeled person. There's a real me in there, There's a real me in there. A real solid me is in there. And of course, ego is tricking us, There's no real I, me within those 75 factors and the 51 mental factors. There's just a whole mass of interrelating, amazing, mental events which go together to make up what we call a person. What we call a person. Which again, the French, very wise. They don't say, I am Kabir. They say, je m'appelle Kabir. Very wise. I'm called Kabir. I'm not Kabir. If you search for me, you won't find me, according to the way we search in Buddhism. But I am called Kabir. That's correct. Je m'appelle Kabir. Because if we say I am Kabir, I might think there's a real Kabir in here, it's really such and such. No, I'm called Kabir. That's correct. I'm not called anything else. Well, I have several names. I am also called Kabir. I'm also called Guruji. I'm called this, and I'm called Kabir. by my friends, and Kabir by my family, and Kabir Ji by people who know me, and Guru Ji by some respectful people or people who want a favor from me in certain parts of India. They call me Guruji, and then they ask me for something. So yeah, but I'm called these things. If you search for real Kabir, it doesn't exist the way we think it does. It's dependent on many factors, causes, conditions, many parts, and then a label, Kabir. This is interesting. If we compare it with what the quantum scientists are saying, we speak very similarly about reality. There's nothing solid, there's parts, there's causes, conditions, and then there's an observing consciousness. And depending on that, things seem to come in and out of existence. Anyway, we can discuss that more. And actually, the Tibet House does a lot of this work, investigating the parallels between Buddhist thought and quantum science. Okay, we'll dedicate now. So dedication comes at the end of any proper Buddhist practice. We don't just stop and get up and go. We dedicate any positive energy we've created in the last 2 hours towards the happiness and welfare of living beings, so that conflict and disease and famine may reduce, so that people, in the simple words of our great philosopher, Bodhisattva Shantideva, people think of benefiting one another. So simple, but so powerful and so needed nowadays. So may that happen. May we never be separated from the authentic teachings and authentic teachers. May we always be under their guidance. May all these authentic teachers have long and healthy lives, and may they continue to guide us. May the Dharma stay in this world system for a very long time. By Dharma, we mean the Buddhist teachings, since they are a very profound way of understanding, taming, and transforming the mind into happiness, into lasting happiness, into Buddhahood, which is the goal of the Mahayana. May all the centers be successful in benefiting more and more people, and may all the various communities be harmonious, and all the practitioners have whatever they need for practicing. May whoever thinks about us or touches us, whether they harm us or help us, may it help them to awaken. In this way, may our lives become meaningful for others, helpful for others. May those who are forlorn and separated from their loved ones be reunited with their loved ones. May all war and conflict between people stop. May all the leaders be imbued with more wisdom and compassionate minds. And we ourselves, may we have the courage to work for the happiness of others. From life to life. So thank you very much for people online and all the people today at Tushita. Today, people at Tushita outnumber the onliners. I'm very happy. So yeah, back to reality, some level of reality, real people, kind of. Thank you, Jan from Australia, and everyone else from wherever you are, Tia in Nepal, and everybody. Thank you so much. Take care. Have a good Sunday. Yeah.